Hello and welcome to episode 200 of the Healthy Runner podcast. I'm your guest host, Carolyn Coffin from Inspired Souls, and I would just like to start out with a great big huge congratulations to you, Duane, as well as your team for reaching this incredible milestone. Welcome to your show.
Thank you for having me. This is really, really awesome and neat that you agreed to accept my invite to be a guest host to celebrate this special occasion. And for those listening to the audio version, I do have an adult beverage that I
He
am
does. I feel
celebrating.
left out. Yeah, I did not get the memo on the adult beverage,
I
but
know, totally last minute. I was walking by the fridge and I was like, you know what? Why not? I haven't done this before ever in the 199 episodes before this. So why not have an adult beverage and celebrate this amazing conversation with my friend Carolyn?
exactly. Okay, well, as a podcast host myself, I know how much happens behind the scenes to produce episodes each and every week. And the fact that you have 200 high quality, value packed, educational, and entertaining episodes in the archives is such an achievement and one that needs to be thoroughly, thoroughly celebrated with adult beverages. And that's exactly what we're here to do today. So, are you ready to celebrate?
I am definitely ready to celebrate. I'm definitely, and I told you this, I was a little out of my comfort zone here, like not having control, a little bit of a control freak. But I think this will all be best without me knowing what is coming at me
Yes.
here. But yeah, let's do it. Let's celebrate.
Yeah. Okay. Well, to be 100% transparent and honest, when you first messaged me about guest hosting this episode, I actually thought it was a joke. It's like, he's not serious, but that's a mean joke to be like, just kidding. I don't want you to guest host. But when I finally realized that you were serious, I was so honored and so incredibly humbled. So, why don't we just start there? What made you decide to have a guest host for this episode? And why did you think of me for the job?
Yeah. So I was actually talking with, it was during one of our team calls. And it might have started out with myself and Coach Whitney on our call. And then we talked about it. Kind of, we do, the team gets together every 6 weeks now. We used to do like every month. Now we do it like every 6 weeks where we all hop on a call, talk about what's going on, what kind of, projects do we have that we're working on, client wins, things like that. And we always do like podcast update on guests or sponsors, so it was kind of and topics, honestly, because we kind of brainstorm topics and that kind of thing. And I wanted to do something different for the 200th, that was a little different than we did for the 100th episode. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll see if one of my like podcaster friends would like to be a guest host and kind of interview, myself. And
Mhm.
yeah, you were definitely, honestly, one of the first people that came to mind. There's a handful of people that I just feel like, even though we've never met in person,
Yep.
that, you've been on the Healthy Runner podcast. I've been on your show. Every
Mhm.
conversation we have is like totally genuine. Like I love after we hit stop and record, it's like we could just keep talking
Yeah,
and
like
talking and
one
talking.
more hour of stuff that didn't get recorded.
So I just wanted it to be like with someone that I felt like I had a like true connection with, true conversation. And yeah, it was actually on my list of things to do for a couple of weeks, because we already talked about it. And with my goal marathon race and all of that was happening leading up to that,
Mhm.
that wasn't at the forefront of my mind because I was trying to really double down on my self-care.
Yes.
And
Good for you.
yeah, you commented on Facebook on my post marathon post, and my brain was like, oh shoot, I never asked her. And I was like, let me just drop it here in the comment section. And I just
That's
like,
why I thought it was a joke.
and I'm like, all right, let me see if she responds to this. And yeah, so thank you for accepting the invite.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure. Okay, I love to hear that behind the scenes. But yes, one thing that I absolutely love about your podcast is how much you share about yourself and your life and your running journey. And actually, the first time I asked you to be on Inspired Souls, I already felt like I knew you because of how much that you've shared, even though we'd never spoken. Actually, at that time, I don't think you knew who I was at all. So is that what we call a parasocial relationship at its finest, where I feel like I know you and you have no clue that I exist?
As long as it's not paranormal,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think sure.
Okay,
Uh,
okay. So my goal with this episode is to have the audience walk away learning something brand new about you, something that they've never known before, and some of the behind the scenes, especially of what goes into making a podcast. As a fellow podcast host, I do have some idea, and I'd love to hear a little bit more about what goes into making the Healthy Runner podcast. So knowing that you are a planner, you've alluded to this already, I figured you'd want to see all of my questions ahead of time. But get this, everyone. Duane agreed to give me full control over the episode, and therefore he's not seen any of the questions that I'm about to ask him. So all of a sudden, you're deeply, deeply regretting that decision,
yeah.
aren't you?
It is tough because I am a planner, and
Yes.
I always feel there are some people who are really talented, by the way, who have podcasts who just go off the cuff, and I give them like so much credit
Me too.
because I cannot think that quick on the fly, and you will probably know what I'm talking about during this episode. So I'm going to apologize in advance for those that stick around and listen to the whole thing. Hopefully I don't disappoint, but I did want to have a genuine conversation with Carolyn and make it as real as possible. I have no clue what she's going to ask. But yeah, I'm always
I
up for
don't
trying new
believe you.
things.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good. I don't believe you. I think you're going to knock it out of the park. But are you ready for the first question?
I am. Let's do this.
What is the square root of 1,378? Just kidding.
Square
Just
roots.
kidding.
Whew.
Okay.
Yikes.
For realsies this time. Okay. Imagine that your friends, family, colleagues, and Healthy Runner podcast community were all gathered in person to celebrate this incredible milestone, 200 episodes. Where are we? What are we doing? And what treats are we celebrating with?
Wow, that is an awesome question. Wow. I would have to say we're at a road race, a fun one that we just finished, and now we've broken into a dance party. Like we have some type of like
Ooh.
award ceremony.
Yep.
Maybe we'll
Say
have
more.
awards for, finishers, top age group, maybe like, I don't know, best costume, I don't know, best
Okay.
outfit or something like that. And then we have a DJ because Scotty's we like to party. So we have a DJ. We got the music going. Now we've broken into a dance party
Great.
and we're
What
just
song's
having fun.
pumping? What song's pumping?
Anything you could dance to. It's got to have a beat, you know?
Yeah.
So
Okay. I'm down with
yeah.
it. And what are we eating or drinking?
um, we could be drinking beer. We could be drinking mules, margaritas. Yeah, those are usually my go-to staples. But yeah, to each his own. Whatever
Yeah.
you would like to be drinking.
Okay.
Um, Water's always good, of course, to hydrate.
Yes.
Maybe I
Electrolytes.
should add that. If
Yeah.
someone's tuning in for the first time in this podcast, they're like, "What? I thought I tuned into like a running podcast. Why did
Yeah. They're
he
like,
reference like adult beverages already 5 times?"
right.
Um,
Okay. But we're at I'm digging the road
yeah.
race dance party vibe. I think we can make this happen.
All right. Yeah. And I think you said, "What are we eating?"
What are we
Did you
eating?
ask that?
Yeah, treats. What, like, we got to have treats, right?
Yeah, you definitely have to have treats. Like I would, we definitely have. We have a huge bowl. What do you call those? Like mortal and pestle,
Yes.
where we make the fresh guac. Right. We have someone that we've hired now from a restaurant that is making fresh guac.
Okay.
And so he's serving up the guac. We have some chips.
I love it.
big fan of like pot stickers, or you want to
Okay,
go with like
okay.
dumplings. Yeah, so you got to
Amazing.
do like finger foods, right? Because we're at a party. We're not going to like,
That's right.
like have a 5 course, meal, right?
Right.
Yeah,
I
you
love
want
it.
to snack, drink, dance, right? And you can't eat for that long because we're dancing.
Yeah, we need the fuel to keep on dancing. So I think the nachos and guac is perfect. I love it. And what about like, is there a healthy runner like cake that we're celebrating with? Or are you more of like an ice cream guy? Like what are we?
Yeah, I'm lactose
Anything sweet,
intolerant, so I'm not an
right?
ice cream guy. However, I am a big fan of like the almond milk ice creams and coconut
Okay.
milk. But
Right.
yeah, I would say anything apple that we can make dairy
Mm.
free is especially really good. So
Okay.
whether it's an apple pie or like vegan cupcakes, there's an amazing place near me, Mr. D's. That's where Coach Latoya and we actually do our one-on-one coaching calls, not on Zoom. We actually meet at
Oh,
Mr. D's
for
because
some
we
cupcakes.
love it so much, and she's also vegan. So yeah, so
Okay.
vegan cupcakes, yeah, it's got to be a good vegan cupcake though, not none of those
Right.
rock hard like
Mm-mm.
ones. This one at Mr. D's, Wallingford, Connecticut. Shout out.
Okay.
They are very very moist. They're like really good vegan
Excellent.
cupcake for those that
There's like
are
a
in the
lineup
Connecticut
out the
area.
door for Mr. D's cupcakes now. Okay, well, I'm liking this. I'm liking the sounds of this. I think we can make this happen. And doesn't this sound like fun, everyone? Like, wow. Okay, awesome. So that's like our little warm up round. Now I want to know everything. Oh my goodness. As a fellow podcast host, I want to know everything about what's behind the scenes in your podcast. So I scrolled all the way back in preparation for this episode to your very first episode, which aired on February 25th, 2020. And the episode was intro to becoming a healthy runner, my story, 16 minutes. Have you ever, what I want to know is, have you ever gone back to listen to this episode?
No, I have not. And it
Eh,
probably took me 5 hours to record that episode.
Really? Okay.
Oh
And it
yeah.
was a solo episode. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Why did
because
it take you that long? Okay. Tell me more about that.
because I was just starting the podcast and I had no clue what I was doing. I didn't even know like how do you talk into a microphone, and I wasn't doing video, so I was literally talking to my computer. It's kind of weird.
It is
And
so weird, isn't
yeah, I
it?
figured I'll give an intro episode. How do I do this? What do I say? The whole point was to provide a little intro, because I it's kind of a little bit of my pet peeve, and I feel bad if no, you guys did an intro episode, because I remember that when Kim interviewed you, you interviewed Kim, because I had listened to that. But when I hear an episode on a podcast and then I'm like, oh, this is a good podcast, I'll start listening. And then I'm like, I want to know more about these people. Like, I want to go back to the first episode or the intro episode to learn more. And I go to the intro episode and it's like straight up content. And it's like a deep dive on a specific topic. And I'm like, that's kind of weird. Like, I want to learn, like, who is this
Right.
person? Like, I want to learn a little bit more about you. So that was my whole goal of that episode.
Yes. No, it was great. I thought
Yeah.
it was great, but I know that I have never listened to that episode where Kim interviewed me because it's like, to quote my daughter, cringe. Like,
Right. Oh
so
yeah.
cringy.
I'm sure if I listened to it now, I'd be like, oh my goodness, that was terrible.
But we're always our own worst critics. I thought it was great, but here's another thing. So we always send our guests a complete the complete version of the episode before it ever airs for them to sort of give their like thumbs up, thumbs down, or whatever. And they all, I would say, like close to 100% of our guests say like, it's good, like go ahead and air it, but like I hate the sound of my own voice. Let me ask you this. Do you like the sound of your own voice, hate it, or are you completely just used to it by now after 200
Yeah,
episodes?
I was shaking my head no, as before you even finished the question, because I don't, and I still don't, but I've definitely become more used to it, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm okay with it now, whereas in the beginning, I definitely did not like it whatsoever.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
But we all have our own voice, right? And it's unique to us. So I think we, like you said, are our own worst critics.
Mhm.
Um, so I've been more comfortable with hearing. hearing my voice. And I have gone back to listen to certain episodes, just not that one, and definitely not some of the older ones. But sometimes I will listen just to make sure everything worked out okay and something didn't sound really weird. And there are sometimes I pick up on things and then I'll like shoot Allie a message, who
Mhm.
edits all the episodes, and I'll be like, oh, there was like some weird thing that happened here. Can we go back and fix
Yeah.
this? So I do listen to certain episodes, and definitely conversations that I would really enjoy listening again. And like
Mhm.
sometimes I'll have a conversation with someone, and I go back and I'm listening now, and I'm like, wow, I totally didn't even pick up during the actual conversation
Yes.
because I was either thinking about where we were going next or whatever. Like I didn't even realize they said that. And I'm like, oh my God, how did I not pick up on that? Like I should have like asked some follow-up question there, or like I literally did not know that they actually responded in that fashion. And I'm
I
like,
okay.
wow, I get so
I
much more out of the replay of the episode than I did the first time around.
okay. I am like nodding my head to everything you just said because it's people think, or maybe I'm projecting, but I used to think before I ever became a podcast, I was like, how hard can it be? You're just asking questions, but like you're listening, you're like watching the time, you're wondering like where do we go next? Like you're saying. And so if you listen back, you're like, I don't even remember like having this conversation. Like, is that how it is for you sometimes? Like, I don't even remember, or I did like, of course you remember having the conversation, but you get so much more out of it, or in such a different way you get things out of it by just listening on your run, let's say.
Right. Yeah. And I appreciate the answers of the guests so much more.
Yes.
Where it was like in the moment, because like you said, I'm thinking about multiple things, and even I don't even know, it was probably over 100 episodes when I was doing them live on Facebook. So
I
now
know.
not only did I have like time going, but I had like comments, people putting comments in.
I
I'm
don't
like
know how you did
literally
that.
typing and responding to people in the moment. I'm dropping links, I'm dropping resources as we're doing it. So
I
that
do
was
not
definitely a
know
lot
how
more.
you did that.
That was a lot more
Wow.
distracting.
That's
So yeah,
next
I
level.
definitely appreciate listening to it, but yeah, I
Yeah.
don't necessarily love hearing my voice.
Okay. All right. Well, let's dive deeper into just kind of that, like what goes into making a 1 hour podcast, like that final product that we get to hear each week. Like, in your estimation, how many hours of like prep work and post production work would you do for like a 1 hour episode? And that could be somebody, that could be actually you researching, preparing, asking questions, or the person, like people that you pay, to that are on your team to produce it for you. What would be your best guess?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I haven't honestly put a number to it,
Mhm.
but I could tell you, let's just say researching, brainstorming ideas, right? If we wanted to theme some content around or had a potential ask of certain guests. So it's a matter of myself messaging those guests, seeing if they would be willing to come on, right? And then it's usually a back and forth exchange of topics, clarifying the topics, and then, creating the room in which we're in on the platform that I use to record the episodes, right? Sending them the link. And then it's prepping the outline really of like, if I am having guests, just because I'm such a planner and I do feel like it usually goes better if I know in advance kind of where we're going, like what's the
Mhm.
direction that this chat
Yep.
is going to take us on. So I will, get some questions in advance. So I do some research and I look at, what does the running community really want to know about this topic?
Mhm.
So let's just say we're talking about tempo runs. I don't know. Or we're talking about, let's go injury. We're talking about runner's knee. Maybe I'll Google, right? I'll do a little intel. I'll go on YouTube. I'll see like what are people, viewing on YouTube that relates to runner's knee, or what are they Googling? Like what are
Yeah.
the common, questions that
Mhm.
people are asking regarding this topic, and let me make sure that we hit upon these questions in some form or format. So that's kind of the research and kind of outlining the podcast, the questions, for guests. If I'm doing a solo episode, it's a little bit more research and then also getting all of my thoughts in line.
Mhm.
There are some episodes I script a little bit more than others, and I've found it helpful to script because I always, in the beginning, I really didn't script anything. I did kind of talk more off the cuff because I was going live anyway. You can't really script a live. So but then there was always, I would, think about, oh, I should have added this, I should have done that. And now, as we've built out more resources that are evergreen for runners, so whether it's the downloadable PDFs, whether it's going to be a video episode that lives on YouTube that is highly watched or searched on YouTube, and there's a random episode I did on posterior tibial tendinopathy.
Mhm.
It's literally the most viewed video on YouTube because apparently there's
Wow.
not a lot of content for posterior tibial tendonitis in runners. And like, I think it's terrible content, like, because it was way in the beginning, right? It
Yeah.
was like way in the beginning, like totally nothing planned, off the cuff. It was live, but people
Wow.
are like commenting in the comments on YouTube. Like, it's got the most comments of any video on YouTube, and I like feel bad. And there was a couple of people like, they were like, yeah, this isn't really good content. And I'm like, I agree, thank you. But but it has helped like many people out there who are struggling with that. But I always go back and I'm like, ooh, I wish I did script that one out, for instance. Like, if I could go ahead and do it again,
Yeah.
eventually I will need to make a new one that is a little bit better formatted and, makes a little bit more sense. But yeah, I try to, the solo ones maybe have more structure around it. And then that makes it easier on me where I don't, I kind of know what's coming. I've already thought out almost like the whole episode in my head. I've put it to paper. It's not like I need to read the paper necessarily, but I can view it for notes, right? And kind of
Right.
go by that and try to make it as authentic as possible and add in lines here and there. It's not like I'm literally reading from the script, only from the script, but it makes it all better in my mind. And
Mhm.
I feel
Mhm.
like I'm able to really call attention and also like the references.
Yeah.
And that is something that people comment on and they appreciate, which I like, because it does take me extra time to do that,
For
to
sure.
go
Yeah.
back. And if we're talking posterior tibial tendonitis, let's say, and I'm referencing another episode on how to improve, ankle mobility, or my best foam roller exercises for runners for their calf muscle who have tight calves, right?
Mhm.
I I'll kind of reference like that episode or that like link to the blog that you can get the download in the episode. So to really streamline and like synthesize the information, because in my brain, it's all there. It's like this huge
Yeah.
resource library, like ecosystem. And for someone who's just coming on board, they don't realize like we have already done that a year and a half ago. And so I would like to direct them to like, hey, if you have this problem, go here. If you have this
Right.
problem, go here. This
Mhm.
is going to be a valuable resource for you. So that's why I
Yeah,
like to
I
kind of script and plan those out.
I appreciate that about your podcast. Like, you always link back to other episodes that might be relevant to the conversation that you're having. But I hear you when like the solo episodes where you get to be in charge, like you know what's coming, you know what you're going to say. That's almost a little bit easier in some ways than having a guest, because then it's like a little bit of uncertainty, like what are they going to say, and I feed off of them. And so when you have a guest, like I have so many questions about guests, like how do you even decide on what guests to have? Is there somebody in your life who acts as a little bit of a sounding board or gives you guest suggestions, or are guests reaching out to you? Hey, can I come on your podcast? Like, how does that all work?
Well, there's definitely people that reach out to come on the podcast. And I would probably say 90%, 95% of them I really don't accept their invite or wouldn't be appropriate to come on the podcast. So it is more cold calls, essentially, right?
Mhm.
Cold emails. And you can really sniff them out. It's really not hard, based upon like the template email they send. And, their stuff may not even relate to running at all.
I
Like
know.
some of the things you get, it's like, I don't know, like someone who's like, a finance expert or something. And I'm like, what? Like, you think this is gonna be like
Do
my
you
audience is
know
gonna
what
wanna
my
tune in?
podcast is about?
Yeah, so I honestly, it's rare that someone cold calls or cold messages. Um, and I actually accept. Actually, I actually distinctively remember when you sent me I'm pretty sure, you correct me if I'm wrong, a Facebook Messenger message, like way in the beginning about, and I think this is when you started your podcast. By the way, like, congratulations on 3 years. I just heard that the other
Thank
day in your
you.
podcast. Like, yeah, kudos to you and Kim.
Thank
That's
you.
huge. That's like a huge accomplishment. And I don't even know, do you say happy birthday or do you say happy anniversary? What do you
I
say to that?
think probably happy anniversary, but I've never really thought about it. Such a good question. Yeah, I would say happy anniversary.
Okay, because I get confused with that myself. I didn't know to celebrate. I hit 3 years last February, and yeah, I wasn't sure. I was like, "Do we say happy birthday, happy anniversary?" Like it was born, right? It was like the birth. I don't know. I
True.
think I
Yeah.
think I did happy birthday last year, so
Okay.
apologize
Okay.
if I was wrong.
I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, and I don't think I've ever really thought about it. So I think they're both right in this case.
Yeah, so I forgot what the original question was. What was the
Um,
original question?
the original question was about guests and how you curate
Oh
them
yeah,
and get them on.
yeah. So for the most part, it is usually me reaching out, but my team on those kind of team meetings that I mentioned usually will have like, "Hey, is there anyone who
Right.
you'd like to see on the podcast?" And whether or not we can connect with those individuals. Um, but it is really just kind of, I'm a big podcast listener,
Hmm.
so it's kind of, the people that I've listened to in the past or who I have been listening to. Um, I'm like, hey, let's just reach out and see if they would like to come on my show.
Yeah.
So that's really how those things happen, is me
Hmm.
just reaching out to them,
Yeah.
and hopefully they say yes. And if they don't, I'm okay with it now because I understand. And
Yeah.
again, I've definitely declined more people than, accepted who reach out to me. And I don't take it personal anymore. In the beginning, it was tough
Right.
though, right? Because you're like,
Yes.
you take all this time and energy to like craft this email, you put like thought into it. You're
Yep.
like, okay, how do I not make this sound like I just like copied and pasted something,
Yep.
and like that I genuinely follow their content.
Right.
I listen to their podcast. Like, I'm a big fan of their work.
Hmm.
And you're like, put yourself out there, and then, if they don't respond to you, which happens, then like, now I don't take it personal by any
Right.
means. But yeah,
Well,
it
I
is
think.
me reaching out usually, or just connecting with different individuals, whether it is like at a professional conference. Like, that's how I'll bring on
Oh,
most of the
yeah.
PTs that
Yep.
I've had on the show, is kind of professional PT world. And then as far as, other run podcasters, yeah, it is more of, I hear about their show, I see a post that they made on Instagram or something, and then I'm like, oh, let me give this podcast a try. And if I
Hmm.
like kind of the content they have, I like their style, it seems like we would jive, I start listening, and then I'll send them a message.
Yeah. I think you were starting to talk about the message that I sent to you over Facebook Messenger. Did
Oh
you want to
yeah,
finish that thought?
that's right. um, yeah, I feel like you kind of cold messaged me in the beginning, right? And I was like, "Oh, who is this? I've never heard of the Inspired Souls podcast. Let me give it a try." And I listened to the episodes. I was like, "This is great." And I probably dropped that first message. I feel like there was a time lag, like months or something. That
Yeah.
probably happened.
I
And
did
I
personally,
apologize.
don't worry.
And I apologize. But yeah, like, that's where, like, timing wise, right? Like, at that time point, it wasn't fitting in my plan, because it was probably even honestly before I was taking on a lot of guests.
Yeah.
And it was just like trying to get the podcast up and running was like the main focus,
Mhm.
and content. And I was just like, almost like running
Overwhelmed by it
around.
all.
Yes. Like a chicken without
Mhm.
a head. And
Mhm. Yeah.
and yeah, I
Okay.
forget how we, I don't even remember. Do you remember how we,
Well,
did you
you
send me a second message?
I didn't because
Okay.
I'm still not at the point, like, if somebody doesn't write back, I'm like, "Oh, well, I asked them," and they like, I'm
I
not
sh
to the
No, you
point
need
where
to though.
I know,
Seriously.
because I know it just ends up low down and that people forget about it, and so, sometimes I guess I will reach back out. But I don't think I did with you. I think you responded back in a reasonable amount of time, and I was so excited. So let me ask you this, because you're one of those people where I'm like, I'll ask, and I told Kim, I'm like, I'll ask, but he might say no, he might ignore my email. But then you said yes, and it was so exciting. So has there been anybody like that for you, where you're like, I'm just gonna send the email, but like I don't expect them to say yes? Does anyone come to mind?
Yeah, I would say probably the latest person was Tina Muir that I've had on the show
I
recently.
loved that episode, by the way.
She's like, I've literally subscribed to her email list for probably like 4 years,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And have listened to many of her episodes, have heard her on many other shows that, either I've been on or they've been on my show. So she was a person that, I literally actually replied to her like email blast, right? So like I know
Mhm.
it came from her email
Yep.
system.
Yep.
It wasn't like her personal email. I literally hit reply and responded back to it and was like, "Hey, would you be willing? I've been on
Yep.
your email list as a subscriber for years, following your work. I know you have your new book. I would love to like talk about it. I just bought it myself." And yeah, she agreed to come on. So
That's amazing.
yeah,
Yeah, that
that's
was such
probably
a
like,
good one. I remember I actually loved your one with Allie on the Run, where you guys spent
yeah.
like the first 25 minutes talking, like nerding out completely on dance. And then you're like, oh, yeah, I guess we should talk about running here. But I was like, no, don't stop talking about dance. This is so fun. Yeah, that was such a good one. So do you get ever like nervous or starstruck, like with Tina Muir, for example, recently? Are you like, oh my gosh? And I know you said like you were transparent about the fact that I'm not done your book yet. So
Mhm.
that was the other thing. Like if experts come on and they have books and podcasts and things, it's like that's a lot of work behind the scenes to get ready for, right? And then ask thoughtful questions about. But you just straight up like, I'm not done it. I'm not all the way through yet. And you still asked amazing questions. Like have you ever kind of like, is there anything that might like fall in the blooper reel category where you're like, oh my gosh, I totally screwed up, or I wasn't prepared, or I forgot to like select my microphone and the sound quality is awful? Like, has there been anything like that you not regret, but something that would fall in the blooper reel category?
Luckily, not with someone who kind of had like a big following
Yeah.
audience, like, that was starstruck, like just getting to like have honestly conversations with like Tina or Allie or like Steph Flippin, who I've had on the
Oh
show,
yeah.
twice for like, I just am grateful to like have those conversations. Even like Jason Fitzgerald, like just getting to like talk to him and just like chat about stuff that we love,
Yeah.
is just like, I'm super grateful for that. Right. So, um, luckily no big bloopers have happened with those, but things that made it like easier, and Tina's awesome with that too. And like I've heard her interview, right? Like Steve Magnus, like, some like, Malcolm Gladwell, like some big, big, huge names. And she talks about herself like being vulnerable. So like that's how I felt like talking to
Yep.
her. Right. So you realize like
We're all
everyone's
just
human.
people.
Yeah, we're
Mm-hmm.
all human.
Mm-hmm.
So it is all, we're all at different stages and points of whatever journey that we're on, whether it is, professionally, podcasting journey, running journey.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and everyone's been where we were, right? If we always
Yeah.
feel like we're never enough, right? Or we're not at this person's level, we're all the same. We're all human. We've all been there before. Like no one's going to judge. Um, but yeah, we've had a couple definitely technical issues. Luckily, more with in-house guests. So there's a couple I could think about. I did a really, really jam value packed episode with Coach Lou on our team, who's kind of like our marathon and speed specialist on our team. And it was like 10 marathon training mistakes to avoid or something like that. And we did it in early summer. I remember it was like before like people would start marathon training. So I'm like, oh, it's just like seasonal content. This is like perfect. People are starting to train for their fall marathons. This is like going to be awesome. And for some reason, where I record the podcast, the system was not working that day. We tried 3 different times, and
Oh,
it starts
no.
recording, and then it just, like, stops.
Oh,
So, it was, like, the 3rd time, and I'm like, "Oh, man." So, we
you're
just
like,
went
"This
to
doesn't sound authentic anymore," after
we
the
just
3rd
went to,
time.
like, Google Meet, unfortunately, to get
Oh.
something recorded. So the audio is not great because it's a Google
Mhm.
Meet, and it's, yeah, and the video quality isn't great on YouTube. I actually just actually published it like 2 weeks ago because it was sitting in draft for so long because
Mhm.
Allie, our editor, was like, this is not like the quality that we usually publish. Like, I don't know what you want to do. But I'm like, the content is so good though. The information is so good. So I'm
Yes.
like, so I kind of like outweighed, like, even though the video quality looks kind of poor, the audio quality sounds like it's, you're on like a Zoom call, basically, like it's breaking in and out.
Mhm.
I was like, the content is still like hugely impactful. So I'm
Yeah.
like, let's just hit publish and whatever.
Yeah.
It's going to help someone. So if they can get through it, but yeah, those things have happened. And the same thing with Coach Latoya. There was one that we did really, I think it was actually first marathon, perhaps, or no, it was a foundational episode. So part of like the 6 steps to growing as a runner and talking about the easy run and
Okay.
how to
Yeah.
actually like do the easy run and like
Mm.
and tips for that. And it was super value packed. It's like foundational. I want to link it in my PDF and all of that. And for some reason, my video did not come out at all. So unfortunately, we don't have a video of it, but we have only the audio file that someone can listen to on the podcast. So at least we have something. But
Right.
I'm a little
Right.
upset that we don't have the video of it because there was like a tech issue where my
Yeah.
video actually did not come out.
Yeah. Well, I think honestly, some of those can have the opposite effect. Like we're worried about, oh gosh, like this is not my normal high quality stuff. I don't want to put it out. But I think in the end, what it can do is make people appreciate, wow, usually this podcast is amazing. The sound quality is like, I don't think you really appreciate good sound quality until you hear bad sound quality. So if you put out bad, like I know sometimes like podcast hosts will do like a live show at the major marathons and they'll put that audio out on their podcast and then you realize that does sound different than their normal show and wow, I appreciate their normal show even more now, so I
Right.
think in the end
True.
it can actually give them an appreciation for what a good show sounds like. So you've interviewed so many great experts, people at the top of their field. I'm curious if you can remember anyone in particular who stands out that's like influenced the way that you've thought about coaching or the way that you've approached your own training and life, like you maybe like change your mind about something uh, because of what this person shared.
Hmm. Yeah, another great I it is I can definitely think about, the episodes that I've done where it has been really impactful. Like I've walked away from it like, wow, that was like a great conversation, or like that was a truly authentic conversation. And I guess, I would have to say the second episode that I did with Stephanie Flippin, where she really kind of talked about like loss, grieving, and then her injury, and was like just so raw and authentic. And coming from someone who is a medical professional, she is a surgeon, a pro trail runner, and just hearing how she talked about all those things that we can all relate to. And like for
Mhm.
me, I related with like the grief and the loss of my mom,
Yes.
and just seeing someone who is at the top of their sport, right? They're a pro runner, and then just sharing how she had her first injury and like the setbacks and like how she managed that, but it made her stronger like after that.
Yes.
It
Yes.
definitely gave me more of an appreciation for running isn't only about training, and it's not only about doing the right training plan, right? And for
Totally.
me right now, like the last couple of years, and you and I have messaged about this, is like I'm on this marathon journey, right? Where I'm fairly novice to it, right? So it's not only about like finding the right marathon plan per se or training program, but
Mhm.
there's so many other variables. And like that episode really opened my eyes to that because it was like hearing her story and how, the personal stressors were wound
Yeah.
up affecting her physically and
Yep.
led to her first injury, and then not being able to run for, as the bone was healing for this period of time, and then
Mhm.
building back up. And it just kind of gave me more of an appreciation that definitely, the personal stressors, the mind, right? Like how much that does play a role in us achieving our running goals.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that one probably was like the most impactful, I would
Yeah.
say, where it really shifted a lot of my thinking.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so, yeah, if I
Yeah,
had
and
to say one episode per se, it'd be that one.
yeah. And lately I've heard you talking more about like that the importance of that self-care piece because I think didn't that play a little bit into your second marathon and just kind of getting all wound up. And so like the meditation, and we've had a mutual guest on, Rebecca
Yes.
Doring.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think you told me in a message before that that one was impactful for you very much so. And so
Yes.
like the sleep and the self-care and the meditation and just like calming activities, because we're so good as PTs and runners and everything to just like go, go, go. But it's that parasympathetic, that's slowing down. So maybe you could say more about that. Rebecca Doring
Oh my goodness.
interview was great.
Yeah, no, because this is actually perfect because I totally forgot that I was introduced by Rebecca by listening to her on your show and hearing her on Inspired Souls. And I was like, wow, this episode's like amazing. This is like really cool. And she did a whole like meditation on
Hmm.
your show. And I
Hmm.
was like, wow, that's a neat idea. Like, and then at the end, it was like, oh, I'm in Connecticut. I'm like, what? She literally lives in my state. And so then going back to your previous question about reaching out to guests. So then I messaged her and was like,
You
hey, I
cold
heard your
called her.
episodes. I cold called her, cold messaged her. Hey, I heard you on Carolyn and Kim's podcast. I love their show. They're friends of my show. Would you, want to come on the Healthy Runner podcast? And that is so weird because I need to thank you, because if you didn't have her on your show, I would have never listened to it. I would have never like opened up my
Yeah.
world to what she does and then actually implement, because she has a lot of great free meditation trainings that
Yes.
I do on a daily basis. And like I would have never started like implementing that practice into my self-care routine. So
Yes.
thank you. Like
Oh,
no,
you're
seriously, like think
welcome.
about the impact that you've made, because you don't realize that. Like you've impacted me inadvertently,
Right.
because
Right.
I would have never done the self-care strategies that was like successful at kind of calming the mind and
Hmm.
doing more self-care before my goal marathon race if
Yes.
you didn't have her on your show. So I
And
owe
that's
all of my marathon success to you.
oh yeah, yeah. Okay, that's a bit of last part, but it is kind of cool, like, the impact that we can make that we don't even necessarily know we're making in the moment. For me, anyway, that's the coolest thing about being a podcast host. It's awesome, and you may never know, like, I may have never known that unless we were just having this conversation, right? And so,
Right.
sometimes I'm like, "How could I do more good in the world?" Like, I'll just go and rate and review somebody's podcast that I've been listening to and loving for years and years and years. And it just like, I never tell them that I love it. So it's like, what's one thing that I can do to help them? So, on that note, like, what's one thing that we can do to, besides listening to the Healthy Runner podcast, what's one thing that we can do to support you and spread the love?
Yeah. Wow. Thank you. Yeah, that definitely, if you rate and review, on Apple or Spotify, it does go a long way. And
Yep.
I do, put that call to action a lot of times in the episodes, but it is really honestly just sharing the link with another runner,
Yes.
because
Yes.
someone, that you care about, like if a friend of mine or someone in my family sent me something, was like, hey, you should probably like listen to this, or this is going to help you.
Mhm.
someone who's struggling in their marathon journey, or they keep getting injured, right?
Yep.
Like, that's the best thing we could do, is just share, hey, this has been helpful for me. So just like having Rebecca on your show, right? Like, that was helpful. And I was like, wow, this is helpful for me. So it probably can help the people who are listening to this podcast right now. Let me share that with the rest of the listeners. Like, we all can do that who are listening
Yep.
to, other shows, is just share it with
Totally.
someone you think would benefit, right? You
Yep.
got to know
Pay it
someone in your
forward.
running circle.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So
I
can I
love
give a
that.
shameless plug for everyone to review the Inspired Souls podcast after you all listen to the Inspired
And
Souls
rate and
podcast?
review Healthy Runner podcast?
No,
Yeah.
seriously. So for those of you who haven't listened to Carolyn and Kim's podcast, I highly recommend it, especially if you like podcast of other, we're going to call them like quote unquote normal runner stories, because you guys do a lot more of that than I do on my show. And I love that. And if you like to be inspired by other runners just like you, and like hear their stories and their journeys, you guys do such a great job at asking like great questions and really getting into those stories. And it must honestly take a lot of work on your end to prepare for that many guests that you have. So
Mhm.
kudos to you.
Well, thank you. And this is not about me, but I do appreciate that. And I mean, that's the whole reason we started it, right? Like everybody has a story and it's awesome and it's cool and we can learn from it. So that's sort of the why, I guess, behind the podcast. But back to you. um, one other thing that the listeners may not know that we share in common is that we are physiotherapists turned run coaches and podcast hosts. Like what are the odds, first of all, of that combination? Like how random. But my question for you is, do you think you've made a bigger impact on the one-on-one clients you've had through your PT office and your PT career, or the people you've helped as a podcast host slash run coach?
Yeah, I would have never said this answer like 5 years ago. I certainly would have never, I would have thought you were crazy 10 years ago.
Yep.
But
Yep.
it is amazing how much more of an impact that I've been able to make with the podcast virtually, whether it is someone
Yes.
listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos, than I've ever been able to help one-on-one in the clinic. So yeah, I would definitely say the latter
Yes.
is true.
Isn't that wild? It's
It
just like
is.
you have a platform and you can make such an impact. And I think I even heard you say you started making the videos for the YouTube channel just for your own clients. Here, go, here's the exercises, do them.
Yeah.
Here they are. And then it's like, wow, this could be linked back, on the podcast. Like go and watch the YouTube channel. It's way easier to watch a video of someone doing an exercise than to try to explain in audio how to do an exercise, right? So very, very cool.
You will. I'm
Fine.
sorry. I just need to interject because you'll appreciate this. Like right here on my little to-do list here, my post-it note, I have edit description, YouTube, hip drops, Achilles progression, because I just gave this to a client the other day, and I looked at the description of the YouTube video, and I'm like, wow,
That's
it
awful. I
shows
must use
like
this.
it shows when I created it like 3 years ago. Right. But it's still a
Mint.
phenomenal exercise to like activate the glute med in single leg stance position. And I'm like, yeah, I got to edit this description now that I know a little bit more about YouTube. But like, you
Right.
can see like all the old language. It's like,
Yep.
yeah, it's pretty bad now looking back at it. But yeah, those things, they're, evergreen. Right. So there are certain principles, there's certain content, right, that will create that, so it's going to impact someone in like 5 years from now or 10 years from
Yep.
now, and we're not even going to know that person. That's why I
Nope.
actually love actually getting on calls with everyone who's going to join our like one-on-one program, because like you can't just sign up for a one-on-one program. Like you have to hop on a call with me, right? And like we need
Hmm.
to make sure it's a good fit, right?
Hmm.
And to make sure that this is, I know that this program is what you need, and
Right.
you're the right type of person who's going to be successful with our program. And I just love I love those calls because it's usually people who have been listening to podcasts for a while, And it's just so nice to actually like hear from someone who has been quote unquote lurking in the background, right? Like I just see numbers of people
Yeah.
listening, but I don't know who they are. Like if these are real people or what, is it just like, I don't know, random phones are playing, on the podcast app.
Yeah.
But it's just so nice to like actually talk to the human and like learn about the person who has
Yeah.
been listening.
I know. It's oh, that's awesome. And that kind of leads into one of my next questions here. So we've talked about this a bit already, but if you're like me, you have a much better memory for things that went wrong than for things that go right. So you're probably not going to like this next question because I'm going to
Oh
ask you
boy.
to toot your own horn a little bit.
Oh,
But I'm the host, so you have to do whatever I say today. You gave me that permission. What is one of the nicest compliments that you've received from a listener or somebody that's gone through one of your programs?
I I definitely can think of a couple of clients that have reached out to me and their message kind of said it all on how desperate they were, like how important running was to them. And they've seen so many doctors, PTs, and they basically were told, like, running is not for you.
Yes.
You just need to
Those
stop running
devastating words.
and it's just not in the cards. And there's this client, I'm going to give her a shout out, Mary, right now, who is actually running New York this coming weekend.
Oh, well, good luck,
um,
Mary. This will,
and it's going to be
by
her
the time
first
it airs.
official marathon, and she's been working so hard for like many years, and she came so close, but every time, like right when she got to her 20 miler, she got injured, right? And
Mhm.
then it just spiraled downward, never did a marathon. And she's like just such a hard worker, and she like follows everything. She's actually a physician, and she's like she just like gets stuff, and she realizes like the limitations that we have in our healthcare system, right? And just kind of for what she's looking to do. And we got her pain free, and it was like, the stubborn hamstring PHT issue. And, she kind of went through that whole, like my 16-week program to get pain free. And then it was like, oh, okay, now you're pain free. So now let's work on training. And typically most clients in our program will transition, whereas they don't necessarily need me, right? Like as their running physio and coach to like work with them on training because now they're healthy. So now it's like,
Right.
okay, we have a team of coaches, and based upon what someone's like personality, honestly, right, what their
Mhm.
goals are, specialty, if they're, really quote unquote fast runner, and they have some like marathon goals and they want to beat you
Mhm.
and stuff. And I'm like, okay, Coach Lou, Coach Whitney, right? If they're like, someone who is more on the beginner runner side, we have a coach for that. If someone's more into trails, then we have a coach for that. If right. So like
That's
then I see
amazing.
like who the perfect fit is for that person. And then I can kind of be on like, the side of the stage here, and I'm like kind of
Mhm.
hearing, getting updates from the coaches. I'm like watching from afar. And then if for some reason, like they have some niggles, they have some aches and pains, then, we do a three-way call, a message, and, I kind of chime in because I'm very familiar with that person, right? But for Mary, like she wanted to work with me, and I just love working with her so much. Where I'm like, oh, you know what? Like, yes, let's do this. Let's train for New York. And I have a couple of clients like that, and which I love too, because
Mhm.
usually the people that I'm working with are in some type of pain, and
Right.
our main focus is getting out of the pain and kind of building right pain-free running and getting
Mhm.
consistent, not necessarily adding a whole lot of speed work. So it's been really fun to actually do like marathon training with a couple of clients. I get to get Sarah right now, who's about to kill her Richmond marathon coming up, who, we're doing like some hard, like fast and, really high quality training. And they're staying pain free. And so I don't even remember what the original question was, but
Well, just a
I just went on
compliment that
a
Mary
rant.
so Mary gave you a compliment probably
I totally
because
sidestepped the whole compliment thing, didn't I?
I knew this would be a hard question for you.
I think it was. I think it was when I remember Mary's original message and hearing your episodes have been so helpful at me realizing like what I need to do for PHT and hamstring
Mhm.
pain, and I know this program is what I need. I really want to work with you. And then it was a matter of me like actually getting on a call with her to be like, okay, is Mary like someone I'm going to dread working with, right? Like I need to make sure, right? Like, let's be honest. Like we need to make sure that it's a good fit for both of us. I knew it was a perfect fit, like on the
Aw.
call. And so, but she had a lot of compliments, I guess, to give in that
Mhm.
coming from like a physician standpoint and a healthcare provider standpoint, where she actually has like two specialties, which is kind of rare in her field. Um, she saw the specialties of being a running physio and a run coach. And
Yes.
she valued that and was like, you produce so much content for like the running community. You don't understand like how valuable that is. And she actually created her own podcast at a time where, and she saw like how, like, yeah, it's hard work to like keep it going. Right. So she really valued that aspect, and she had a lot of positive things to say. So I was thinking of Mary when you asked that question.
Amazing.
I
Okay,
diverted
well,
in like 10 different
shout out
directions.
Mary. Good luck at the New York City Marathon this weekend.
Yes, she's got this.
Um,
She does.
that's
She is
great.
so ready though. She really
She's
is.
so ready. Isn't that so fun to take someone on a journey? Because, like, when you take someone on for run coaching, it's like you see their potential. Like, as a run coach, you're just like like you're the cheerleader for them, right? You know what you can unlock in them if they follow the process and communicate with you and everything. So,
Can I just
some,
say, every time you say that word on your podcast, I was like, and you guys probably didn't even, we didn't talk about this in the beginning, but you are a Canadian physio, right? Turned coach. So you live in Canada, but process, like we
oh,
say here, but process every time. That's like such a Canadian thing though, right? Like
I
anytime
didn't even
someone
know
says that
that.
word, it always triggers to me like, oh, they're Canadian. But yeah,
Okay, I did not there's a lot of things that we say different, but I didn't know process was one of
yes,
them.
that is
Get
definitely
out.
one that I always like. It always catches my ear for some reason.
Okay, now I'm, like, gonna be self-conscious about
No,
that
no,
word, but
don't. Because I probably
um,
say it wrong. And I was originally from New York, so we like have a whole different like dialect in New York.
yeah,
Like New
yeah.
York is.
Okay, that's so funny. But anyway, we know that we can help people, right? If they just did this or that, like we can get them pain free or we can get them to perform better. So, on that note, if you could sort of like wave your magic wand and bestow upon every runner one thing that will help them to enjoy running more, perform better, what would that one thing be? It could be like a training tip or a mindset shift. Like, what is that one thing that you're just like, why aren't you doing it like this? Like I can help you.
To be pain free. Is that the question?
Mhm. To be pain free, to enjoy running more, to perform better. I think those are all one in the same, quite honestly. If you're not enjoying running, you're not going to be able to stick with it long enough to ever perform better or love it.
It would be really mastering the 6 steps to growing as a runner. And that's like the evolution of where I've gone since episode 1 of the podcast that you apparently listened to the
I
intro.
did.
I definitely did not talk about 6 steps to growing as a runner then. I probably focused more on the physical aspect of what I knew as a physical therapist at the time before I even became a run coach. So I definitely didn't talk about the training besides like train smart with proper progression. That was kind of like the thing. But remember that original Spark blueprint that I went on your show about,
Yes.
right? Like that evolved into the 6 steps to growing as a runner. And the,
Yes.
the big elements that got added to the Spark blueprint essentially was nutrition and proper fueling for
Mhm.
not only races, but for your training runs. Like you have to master that. And then you have to master the mind. The mind is so
Yes.
important. And that's been like the journey I've been on in the last year, really, is trying
Yes.
to improve that area of
Yeah.
the mindset, whether it's during training or keeping calm and getting into good self-care
Mhm.
strategies, right? And then I guess the other element that was kind of new is the training, right? That was kind of like more specifics,
Yeah.
but the kind of the recovery, the strengthening, obviously, that most runners don't do, that I've done my whole life. Like those are super important. And then the race strategy, and like there is a strategy to a
Mhm.
race. Um,
For sure.
so if
Yes.
you master those 6 steps, like that's literally, I almost feel like, but who know? I'm sure it's going to evolve in 5 years from now.
Yep,
The
of
six
course.
steps might change, and there might be something different. But like right now, I see like literally, if runners could just master these 6 steps
Mhm,
and
mhm,
learn how to like maximize or optimize those
mhm.
areas, as opposed to just running, where most people just focus on one of the buckets out of the 6, and they
Yes,
don't dedicate the time, learning, the resources, whatever the case may be, to the other 5. And then they wonder why they get injured, or they wonder why they never get faster, or they wonder why, oh, I'm just getting too old for running. Like, hey, happy birthday to you, by the way. You just had a birthday. I just had a birthday, right? Like,
you
literally,
did.
I'm 44, and I've now run my, fastest marathon, right? And
Mhm.
I've run my fastest half marathon this year in the past 7 years. So it's not age,
Yes,
guys. It's not age. So
exactly,
we need to
exactly.
optimize those 6 areas.
And I find it so interesting in that we are always like teaching the thing that we need to learn the most, or the thing that we've just learned. So it doesn't surprise me that you'll update that Spark blueprint and now it's the 6 steps. And like you said, in 5 years from now, there might be tweaks to it as well. And that's just a normal process. Did I say it again? Process?
You said
Pro?
process.
Oh,
You
maybe
said
I
process. You like
interchanged.
became Americanized right
I
there.
See, I'm fluent in both languages. I'm fluent in both languages, but I did wanna go there. So, firstly, congratulations on your most recent marathon. You just ran the Cape Cod Marathon a few weeks ago, October 8th, was it?
Yes, yes.
And you did a wonderful recap. Actually, I think that's how this episode came about, because I was like, "I hope you're gonna do a recap," because I loved the recap that you did about your marathon last year in Hartford. And you did a whole recap episode, which I thought was like fabulous. Like, I honestly think that people learn more when somebody shares about something that didn't go exactly according to plan, as they do when we hear about all the wonderful, perfectly executed highs. But this marathon, so I'd encourage people to go back and listen to episode 198, because you did a wonderful recap there and you ran a 23-minute PR, or as we like to say in Canada, PB, of 3:40, 3 hours, 40 minutes, and 38 seconds. And it sounds like you even had some challenges in that race, like weather related. You could have gone even faster if it weren't for this nasty headwind, it sounds like. So I have one question about the marathon, because I don't want to spend too much time on it, because I was given a 1 hour time limit and we're almost we're over. Would you rather, now that you've run into straight into a headwind, would you rather run straight into a headwind or run in heat and humidity?
My goodness. During a race or a training run?
A race.
Oh
You
my
have to pick
goodness.
one.
I know it's so hard. Oh my goodness. I still would take the headwind, I think.
You would.
I think I
Okay.
would. Because when it's dew point humid weather, like, I feel like that is a wall that,
Y-
like, I felt like I didn't necessarily feel like I was hitting a wall. It was just frustrating that I'm running and I felt like I was running in place
Yes,
with the
yes.
headwind. Like, heat and humidity is like, could be
The
death.
worst.
Like, you feel
Mhm.
like literally you are hitting a wall. Like, I think
Yes.
about the hard training run I did, a long run in Florida, in Southern Florida this year during my marathon training cycle. I think about that run, and my coach had some marathon paced miles in it, and I'm like literally down near Delray Beach. I'm right near the water. The views are great, and I'm trying to go at marathon pace, and there were some half marathon intervals in there, half marathon paced intervals, and I'm trying to do it, and literally I can't do it. But I also feel like, dude, you're gonna like overheat here. Like, you're gonna like start dropping like flies. Like, this is getting like terrible. This
Yeah.
feels terrible. And yeah, so I would say running into wind doesn't feel terrible. It's hard to do, but it doesn't
Yes.
feel terrible.
Okay, I'm with you on that. I did have to think about it a little bit, but yeah, heat and humidity is essentially the death of endurance athletes. And wind sucks, but at least you're like cooled down a little bit, right?
Right.
Your sweat's evaporating off your skin a bit more than it would be in the humidity, right? So, okay, would you do another one? You've done your 3 marathons now.
Oh, yeah.
Would you do
No,
another one?
definitely.
Do you
Yes.
have another one on the calendar that you want to share with
Well, we'll
us?
see. I put in for the lottery for Chicago.
Right.
So I
We
did
could
put
be there
in.
together. I'll
That'd
be
be
there next
phenomenal.
year.
And we will definitely have to do a
Live
live show. And
show,
it won't sound
dance
perfect.
party.
Like, people will be able to hear that we're doing a live show, like, because we'll
Yes.
probably have to do it, like, on our phones.
Yes, exactly. Oh gosh, how do you record a podcast on your phone? We'll be learning all new things. That would be really fun. I would love
So
that.
we'll
So keep
see.
me
I
posted on
I didn't get
Chicago.
in last year, so we'll see. I guess the odds are a heck of a lot better than, like, trying to get in the lottery for New York, but,
Yes.
we'll see if, round 2, if I get in. If not, then I'll probably go with the original one that I was supposed to do this year, but I waited too long to actually register for my own race because I was too busy worrying about everyone else's races. So then I would probably go back to the Wine Glass
Wine glass. Yeah, that's
in
supposed to be a
Corning,
good
New
one.
York. So
Yeah.
that was like early September. It was a weekend before like
Okay.
Chicago and the Cape Cod Marathon. So I'd probably
Right.
try that one. But I am a big
Closer to
fan
home.
of trying, newer races, destination. Like, let's make it a runcation and
Yeah.
really have one purpose of, really hitting my goal. And I know you
Mhm.
like to do a lot of the destination races. And yeah, I've
Exactly.
seen your journey and like you've done some really fun, cool places
Yeah.
that you visited. So I
Yeah.
want to do
Wine.
that. I want to be like Carolyn.
Okay. Good luck. Oh, too funny. Okay, I have a few rapid fire or lightning round
Okay. Yeah.
questions to end the podcast. Are you up for that?
Add a little spark. Let's do it.
Add a little spark. Okay, today we're recording. It is October 31st. Are you dressing up for Halloween? And what are you
And
going to be?
I am not.
Okay.
I'm dressing up what I'm wearing now.
Okay.
I know. I've actually a couple calls. It's probably like the first Halloween that I'm totally like not even doing anything.
Not into.
My
Well, your
girls are
girls
old.
are
They're high
older.
school. So I
Yeah.
guess a couple of friends are coming over and they're gonna like watch a movie. But I don't even think my younger one, the freshman, she's too cool for school to even trick or treat anymore.
Right.
So
I know. It's the end of an era.
yeah.
Okay. Do you get trick or treaters to your house?
Not really. For some
No.
reason, our
Okay.
block doesn't. Probably because we don't have sidewalks. That's probably a reason why. But yeah, we don't get a lot of trick or treaters in our
Okay.
neighborhood.
Fair enough. Well, then my next question is when do the Christmas decorations go up?
We are a big Christmas celebrating
I
family.
know.
So there are a lot of lights that go on this house. And we have our annual Scotti holiday party that my whole family, my Scotti family, come over. And that's like the one time of the year, honestly, that we all get together. So it's a very special moment for me. And yeah, the lights go on right after Thanksgiving. I might try to get them up a little earlier. I'm not going to lie. Especially because we just got tickets. My wife got me for birthday tickets to Hamilton on Broadway, which I'm
Yay!
super pumped about.
That's so
Yeah, I've
exciting.
loved that soundtrack for so long. But yeah, so I'm gonna try to maybe get some up a little before Thanksgiving, though it feels really weird to do it like
Yes.
before. Yeah, it's a little tough. You almost have to transition because we get together with family for Thanksgiving, so it's like that has to be over, and then you move
Yes.
on to Christmas.
Well, then you can just become Canadian because we have Thanksgiving the weekend that you ran your marathon. So October 8th, like that weekend was our Thanksgiving.
So you're
And so
already
we
decorated.
always, yeah, no, like literally we decorate the day after Remembrance Day. So my husband's in the military. So we kind of like do a Remembrance Day thing. And we're like, we can't possibly put the Christmas decorations up before Remembrance Day, but November 12th, up they go.
Oh, so yeah,
So
you
you
got
can
a good
become
like
Canadian.
2
Mhm.
weeks on us.
Totally.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, there's no rules around this.
All right.
You're an adult, Duane. You get to do what you want to do, and your Christmas decorations can go up early November. I
Okay.
give you permission.
Thank you
Okay.
for that.
Well, on that note, what is your favorite food that you're looking forward to having on your Thanksgiving table this year?
It's definitely my grandma's stuffing. Yeah. Grandma Scotti, gotta give her the shout out. It's my grandma's recipe. I make it every year. We do a little Italian sausage in the stuffing. Um,
Yum.
I sounded very New York right there. I don't know if you noticed that. I said
I
stuffing.
did. Yes.
I don't know where that came out of. Yeah, I guess because I was talking about my grandma, and yeah, that was Long
Exactly.
Island days. So yes, the stuffing is is what, and I do like turkey. I eat turkey though, like every week. So it's like not new
Okay.
for me,
Not
but
that special.
I got to get that protein in, of course.
Exactly. Okay. Wonderful. Um, on the run, are you a music guy or a podcast guy? I think I know the answer to this.
So speed work and races, definitely music.
Okay.
Easy running and to start speed work or to end speed work, either podcast or just started doing this the last like 4 months, maybe 3 months, is silence and nothing. So I've
Okay.
been really doing that, and it's been really helpful, especially when workload is high, stress levels are high, just to go out for that mental clearing run and just like looking around nature and hearing, the sounds, almost like a moving meditation.
I
So I've been
love
getting
it.
into that. Hopefully I'll have more of that in the coming months, but I've been enjoying that. But it does get me a little bit backlogged, I'm not going to lie, on
Yes.
podcast listening and
Podcasts are
or
piling up. Oh no, I'm behind. The type A personality coming through.
yeah,
Okay.
so
Well, if you were listening to music or podcasts, what's one of your favorite podcasts? Please don't say inspire. You're not allowed to say inspired songs. And what's one song that's on your playlist?
Oh, okay. So podcast. So if I'm listening to a running podcast, what are like definitely, strength running's up there, definitely Running Rogue, Chris McClung. I
Mm.
know big fans of his show. Those are up there. And yeah, it depends like what I'm looking for flavor wise, right?
Right.
If I want to get a nice little round table, like I'm listening to like Rambling Runner or Relay, their new
Oh
kind of
yeah, it's so good.
platform. And then Stephanie, my coach, is on that. So then, I gotta listen to that as well. Yeah. So those would be like, the running ones and it depends, like if I'm looking for like someone else's take. I do like to listen to new shows too,
Mhm.
and just to kind of hear what's out there, and what's in kind of the space. I also really enjoy listening to Elizabeth at Running Explained.
I
She's
know. Yeah.
awesome, and
I
she's just
loved your
so,
episode with her,
yeah,
actually.
she's so genuine, honestly,
Yes.
and she's someone who, like yourself, like I feel like we really connected, like
Mhm.
on the episodes that we've done together. So, yeah,
Yes.
whenever she has a topic that I'm like interested in, I'll listen to her
Yeah.
podcast, and then I like to listen to business related podcasts because, again, my
Yes.
background is not in business, and I do have a business, so I need to learn more, right, on how to run that business efficiently, and so I kind of geek out in that realm.
Cool. Okay. I do know from your episode last year with Ali Eldridge for one, not last year, I guess it was 2 years ago for your 100th episode, that you love board games. You're a big board game family. So, what is one of your favorite board games to play with your family?
Yeah, I would say our staples are Clue. Clue is a classic. Like we just,
Classic.
and especially once the girls got older and they like knew how to play it. Now it's like highly competitive. So my cousin Brett, who's like my brother basically, and his family's over, we're like so competitive, and yeah, it's crazy. But that sequence, Uno and Uno
Mhm.
Attack, that's always
Ooh.
a good one when you get the cards like shooting out at you. You try to like hit the ding, and there's
Yeah.
like nothing that shoots out, and then you get like 10 cards and everyone screams like, hey, that's awesome. And that's good with
Uh,
like the younger ones. So like my goddaughter, Brett's daughter, Thea, she's like, she's running us basically on like Uno Attack.
yeah.
She's like
Yeah.
killing all the adults. um, so yeah, those are our staples.
I think the Scotti family celebrations sound like a lot of fun. If I'm ever in the New Hampshire area, I think Connecticut
Yeah,
area, I think I might pop in.
definitely got to come to a Scotty holiday party or gathering. Yeah,
Yeah.
we know how to party.
Okay. Final question: Dancing with the Stars, or So You Think You Can Dance?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. I personally haven't watched them in a long time, but I used to watch them way back in the beginning. I would have told you So You Think You Could Dance because, yeah, I think a lot of had more interesting dancing in it. But then Dancing with the Stars, I used to love partnering work and lifts. So I always love
Mhm.
watching the lifts. My wife and daughter Gabby, who was the dancer, now volleyball player, but they like definitely watch all the episodes of like Dancing with the Stars. They saw like the live show a couple of times. So they're like fully into that the last
Okay.
couple of years. But yeah, unfortunately, I haven't watched any of those episodes.
So if you were ever on Dancing with the Stars, who would your celebrity partner be?
I don't even know a good celebrity partner name anymore, but
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
if J Lo could be like
Ooh,
an
that would be a
option,
good
like
one.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Will she be at our running dance party,
absolutely. We're doing
nachos and guac party?
we're having guac. We're doing the salsa. We're
Okay,
dancing
that was
salsa.
my other one. Mhm,
So
mhm,
we
mhm.
are doing some salsa, maybe some merengue, a little cha
Yes.
cha.
I love it. Well, here's something that maybe you didn't know about me. I was actually in a local Dancing with the Stars, like spin-off, knockoff thing.
What? Are you serious?
Yes. So I danced to Candyman by Christina Aguilera. Anyway, we'll send you a video
I have
after.
not.
We'll put
Yes,
it in the show notes.
please. Please send me
Yeah.
that video. I'm posting that when we air this episode.
We had 8 weeks to learn a dance, so it was, like, a little different than the format of Dancing with the Stars. It was just, like, local people that own businesses and stuff like that. So we both got trained by the dancer. So neither of the people were dancers. But then we had 8 weeks to learn a dance with the help of somebody that knew dance. It was very fun, and then we performed it live in front of, like, 1,400 people or something
That's
for,
amazing.
like, a fundraiser. Yeah.
Were you truly a novice? Like you didn't do ballroom dancing
100%. I
whatsoever?
mean, I, like, did gymnastics when I was young, but
Right.
I had 0 dance background. So I
Wow.
had 8 weeks, and actually then the next day, I ran my first marathon.
What? Are you
Yes,
serious?
it was in 2015, so I was a little younger then, and I could, like, bang out a dance on Friday night, and then I think it was Sunday morning, the marathon. I had to go drive there into Vermont. It was the Vermont City Marathon, so I had a little drive on the
Ah.
Saturday, and then yeah. But anyway, this isn't about me. So, um, final question. I know I said I already asked you the
We're
final
gonna do
question, but
that for
there's
like the
one
next
more.
hour, by the way. I hope you guys
Yeah,
are ready for like a
exactly. I
2 hour
know.
episode.
I'm so over time. I'm gonna get fired here. Um, if you could change one thing about the
Oh my
misconception about
goodness.
being a podcast host, what would that be?
The one thing about being a podcast host that it's easy, that it's,
Mhm.
you just talk into a microphone and you're done. There's a
Exactly.
lot of behind the scenes work and a lot
Yes.
of planning that goes in. So that
And
would
I hope that
probably
really
be it.
came through in this episode. Like, that's really what I wanted people to understand as well. Like, being a fellow podcast host, it's not just the hour or hour 20, and as the case may be here, that we put in recording this conversation. It's all the prep work beforehand and all of the post production stuff afterwards and making the graphics on social media. And there's so much that goes into it. And you are amazing at what you do. This has been amazing and everything that I imagined, plus more. I'm so grateful that you agreed to be in the hot seat of your own show and trusted me with the hosting duties. Hopefully, I didn't make you sweat too much. My questions weren't too hard, but on behalf of all of your listeners, your patients, your students, your clients, thank you for all you do for on behalf of the running community to educate us, empower us, and be a role model for us. Thanks for all of you for listening today. I hope this episode made you smile and that you learned something new about Duane. He will be back in the hosting seat next week. And until then, let's maintain a strong body, a strong mind, and let's just keep on running.
Oh my goodness, that is amazing. And thank you, honestly, thank you for taking the time to like actually prepare for this because you're the one who put in all the work for this. I really didn't. So thank you, Carolyn. This has been a truly special conversation. And yeah, I've enjoyed it. And I cannot believe the time did pass this quickly because I still feel like I want to talk to you. But we're going to end the episode now because no one else is going to listen. And hopefully, guys, we'll be talking to you at episode 600, maybe 800, maybe 1,000, who knows?
Yes.
Yeah, let's just keep on podcasting. Let's keep on running. Got to be consistent, just like our running. And I've been consistently showing up for you guys here each and every week for 200 weeks. Until next time.
Do you record the video? I forgot to ask
I
you that.
do.
Okay.
Yes,
Because you put it on YouTube, don't you?
I do. This will be on YouTube.
Oh gosh. That's the part I'm most nervous for. Because like I chop the heck out of mine when I edit it. I chop it all. And so
Yeah.
like how would that work if you had a video?
Yeah, it's harder. So it is a separate process. I'm sure we can kind of get into that. It is video editing in addition to the audio editing.
Wow. And that's not your job though, right?
Correct. Thank
Okay.
goodness.
Thank goodness. Okay. Yes, we might get into that. But you're not putting any of this on, are you?
Who knows? Maybe we'll have like a behind the scenes bloopers or something.
Okay. That may or may not be one of my questions. Okay, are we ready?
Yes.